Well, Mississippi State may be 5-7, but there's a real reason this season was a success, and it goes way deeper than the record. We'll break down the progress you can't see in the standings.
You are Locked On Mississippi State, your daily podcast on the Mississippi State Bulldogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jaron Spor. Welcome to Locked On Mississippi State, part of Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Like I said, I'm Jaron Spor. I'm a national college football writer at Athlon Sports. That's Landon McBride. We have got a packed show for you today. We're going to break down the coaching carousel and how that will affect Mississippi State. Also, signing day is late. It's been happening all day today. Well, I guess in a couple hours is when it will officially happen. But if you're watching this later on the day, it's already happening. So we're going to talk about.
We're sorry.
Yeah. And so we'll talk about some signing day. Obviously, Thursday's episode, we'll go into all the signees and things like that. We'll dive into it much more. But we have to kind of do a season in review here, Landon, because there's some people that think this season was a success. Some think it was a failure. Where do you kind of stand on that?
I think overall it's a success, but the problem that I think that a lot of people are having with looking at it is after the first month, you got one win. If you spread out these 5 wins a little bit more like evenly across the season, I think people would be looking at it more as a success than what they are. But when you start 4-0 and end 5-7, it's hard to look at it as a success when it's just right in your rearview mirror.
Yeah, and on top of that, the way it ended with the last 3 losses being all double-digit blowouts.
Mm-hmm.
All of them were 19 or more, 2 of them by 20 or more.
Yeah.
And so I think that also kind of makes people like, oh, I don't know if this is a success, but you started 4-0. You had the major win over Arizona State, who was ranked for a lot of this season. And that was when Arizona State was fully healthy. That wasn't when Sam Leavitt was injured and out.
Yeah.
So you have that.
Played in
right.
That
and Jordan Tyson played in that game. And then, Tennessee, that's a game you should have won, really, but you end up losing in overtime. Texas A&M, it's close in the 4th, but you end up blowing it late. Florida, you should have won again, but you throw this bad pick. Yeah, Texas, you're up 17 in the 4th. You blew that. So the first 9 games of the year, you should have felt at least good because you were in every game, at least for most of it, or you won the game. And that's kind of what we wanted to see. And that's why in the tease I said, it kind of goes beyond just the standings why this was a success. You also improved your record by 3 wins. Now, I want to dive into the numbers because, yes, the record isn't, great, but I see a lot of people that say, well, this team needs to be an 8-9, 10-win team, compete for the college football playoff. And I dove into the numbers with Mississippi State's history. And the thing I want to say is, there's 2 things can be true. On one case, you have to be realistic based off of what the program has been since its entirety. Mm-hmm. And you can also be realistic based off of what has happened in the recent years. But with that being said, you can also want improvement and expect improvement. Yeah. That's fair. Both of those can be true. But I just want to go through this. So in the 24 years before Jeff Lebby, what do you think their average wins were per year?
Average wins, probably about somewhere between 6 and 7.
5. And they went 5-7 this year. Yeah. Okay. And the 8 years since Dan Mullen left, what do you think their average was?
Since he left, probably 5, 4 or 5.
5 also.
Yeah.
The 9 years before Dan Mullen, what do you think it was?
5?
Well, it was actually 4, but you're right
on.
I
thought I was sensing a trend.
Yes. Now, in the 121-year history of Mississippi State, what is their average?
I'd say it's probably around 5 or 6.
5, like right on the money. Now, the 9 years of Dan Mullen, it went up to 7. Mm-hmm. So it improved a little bit. But you went right on par with what Mississippi State has been all time, last 20 years, last 8 years, however you want to do it. You were right on par with that. And actually, the 5-7 year is the 50th best season in Mississippi State history, meaning it's an above average season because there's 121 seasons. So it's above average. Now, with that being said, I wanted to kind of break down real quick what I look at when a new coach takes over. I never judge the first year. I've said that many times. The second year, I want you to get at or above what it was the year that you took, like the year before you took over. So get back to that level.
Right.
And then, because that usually shows, because usually your first year is bad. Now, sometimes it's good, but usually it's bad. It's worse than the year before. So that second year, you want to get back to what it was, and then you want to then improve on that. Well, the year before Lebby got there, they were 5-7. So they went 5-7, and then Lebby comes and they dropped. Now they went back to 5-7. So they're back to where they were.
Yep.
Now you have to take it to another level.
Yes. And I think also some of like I don't know if I want to call it misperception, but just kind of how people are seeing this team is since Dan Mullen left, it's kind of regressing back to what it was before him. But that regression is coinciding with the most successful 6-year run in the history of Ole Miss. And I think that's kind of making it a little bit harder to stomach that you're kind of falling back a little bit, which, I mean, that happens. But we're showing that this team is on the trajectory. Now, some of this is going to come down to who you keep in the portal. And that starts with number one. If you can keep Kamario Taylor here,
right?
I mean, 5 wins is probably the floor going forward.
Yeah.
I mean, if under this new regime and with him, the floor is what this team has historically been, that's a really good place to start.
Yeah, right. And you know, even the Dan Mullen era, I'm kind of looking at it, you know, he was there 9 years. He had, let's see, 1, 2, 3, we'll give him 4 total. 1 year, obviously, it was his last year. He left after before the bowl game. So, but we'll still give him that. But 4 seasons of 9 wins. Everything after that, the other 5 years were below that. He even had, let's see, 1, 2 losing seasons in that mix. He had 2 7-6 seasons in that mix. But people remember the last 3 of the last 4 years where he went 10-3, 9-4, and 9-4. But in between that, he had a 6-7 year. And that was a year that, if people forget the 2016 season, they were actually 5-7, made a 5-7, made a bowl game, won the bowl game to get to 6-7.
Right.
And normally you wouldn't make a bowl game at 5-7. But they look at that and they think, okay, well, we have to be that. And they don't even realize that there's been 3 10-win seasons in the program's history. One was in 1940.
Counting things before World War II are hard for me.
Right. and 9 or more win seasons, there's been 10 total of those. So this goes back to where you have to be realistic. Now, I'm not saying that that's just what you should expect. You should want to improve that.
You want that, but
right. Yeah. You just have to be realistic to what the program has been in the recent history. And like I said, also in the overall history of the program. And the overall history of the program is they're a typical 5-win team per year. And that's exactly what they did this year.
Yeah. And like I said, I really believe that if you maybe win the first 2 games, then you lost 3 or 4, then you won another 2, and then you ended the season with a win. If that's how this season shook out, even if you keep the opponents the same for who they beat, you just spread it out over the season. I think people are ending this year feeling a lot better about where this program is headed. It's just really hard to go into an offseason feeling good when you lose, was it 7 of your last 8? I mean, that's a real hard way to.
And I think they would honestly be feeling fine if those last 3 games weren't blowouts.
Yeah, that would help. But
like, even if those last 3 games you lost and you lost by 10 or 7, or, it was 7, but they score a late touchdown to make it 14 or something. I think you're still feeling pretty good about the season. And I get the overreaction to it because of how it ended. But I think there's a lot of things that you should be optimistic for the future. And Lebby is doing a heck of a job recruiting, which we will talk about that in the signing day period, because they've landed some commits the last couple of days. Obviously, Bralan Womack is the big one. Kind of keep an eye on that one. We'll talk about it more in signing day, because something big happened in that recruitment on Tuesday. So we'll have to talk about that. But up next, we're going to talk about the coaching carousel because it's been a wild.
Yes.
And Lane Kiffin is just the beginning of how wild it's been. But we'll dive into that and how that will affect Mississippi State because some of it is already starting to take place. So we'll have to talk about that. That's coming up next. Well, NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys keyed up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So you want to be right in the middle of the action this season. Visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. All right, well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. All right, the coaching carousel. Again, it's been a wild one. You had
It's the craziest one in forever.
It's the craziest one I've seen, and I was really surprised some of the teams that let go of their coaches at this point, knowing how crazy it already was. Kentucky was one, they let Mark Stoops go, but they were able to get the guy that they had at the top of their list, Will Stein, the Oregon offense coordinator. Oregon lose both coordinators.
Yeah.
Because Tosh Lapoy, the defense coordinator, took the Cal job, which I believe he's Cal's his alma mater. But Lane leaves, obviously goes to LSU, which that's big implications for Mississippi State because Lane had kind of, and we'll talk about it kind of in the, or we can talk about it now actually, because we don't have to really dive much into the sign day, but Lane kind of had a stranglehold on the state when it came to recruiting. And I know Mississippi State did get their fair share, but I was looking at it, not counting this year, because the top commit, top recruit in Mississippi went to Tennessee this year, according to 24/7 Sports. Not including this year, at least the last three. I stopped in 2023, but I can even go back to 2022 to see the last three top player in Mississippi went to Ole Miss. And Mississippi State got several of the top 20 guys, but they weren't getting the top one. And looking at 2022, it looks like the top guy went to Bama, but the second guy went to Ole Miss. So, I mean, he was getting the top player in the state.
Yeah, which that's huge that feels. Now we have to see what the defense coordinator, and I'm blanking on his name, and I should know it. That's terrible of me not to have his name up. The new head coach there.
Pete Golding.
Golding. I've read it 17 times a day, and it slipped my mind. What he's able to do. Like, obviously, he was a big part in recruiting the defensive players that they got there, but how much of that pull was you're playing defense for Kiffin's offense? So you're probably playing with the lead the majority of the time. We'll be interesting to see how much of that infrastructure he's able to keep going. I mean, it's a bold move by them to just promote that quickly. I think it's an interesting choice. I get why you do it for a lot of reasons. One, where you are in the coaching cycle, how many of the top targets had already been hired elsewhere. And you're probably hoping to keep a lot of your commits, and especially on the defensive side, from following Lane to LSU by promoting him. So I get why they did it, but the door's now open for both recruiting and for, taking back control of this rivalry, really. Because, I mean, the Kiffin had a stranglehold on a lot of things. You mentioned the recruiting in the state. I mean, he would one of, if not the most successful run for Ole Miss since, 70s?
It's the most successful era in Ole Miss history, not even close. And Ole Miss has won the last 3 Egg Bowls, so that's a good point. Like that, you can now kind of take a stranglehold back on that conference. Yeah, I understood why they did the Golding thing so quick. I mean, signing day was coming up, the continuity. I understood all that.
Yeah,
but man, we'll see. This is going to come off as Mississippi State fans hating it, but I don't think it was a good hire personally. And mainly because what did you have to lose from naming him interim, see what he does in the playoff, and then deciding if he's the guy for the future? Like, what did you have to lose by doing that? I don't know. I mean, because the candidates you would have replaced him with had already been gone or picked up, because the big name was John Summerall. If Lane leaves, then maybe John Summerall comes to Ole Miss. Well, he had already gone to Florida. Like, you already lost out on Summerall. You were already going to have to pick someone down the list. And again, maybe that's why they did it, because they're like, we already are out of options. Like, we have to go with him. But in my opinion, you no longer have this gap between head coaches in terms of better head coach between you and Ole Miss. You no longer have it. Lebby and Golding are, now we'll see with Golding, but worst case, they're even. Best case, Lebby has the edge. And so you no longer have that. And Lebby can recruit. And so Mississippi State has a real chance to get a stranglehold of this rivalry right now.
Yeah, now you have a guy, or Ole Miss has a guy who's never been a head coach before. So it ends up being a little bit different with the clock management side of things, because yes, there's clock management involved with being the defensive play caller, but it's not as heavily scrutinized as being the clock management on the offensive side. Usually it just comes down to calling timeouts when the other team has the ball toward the end of a half. That's pretty much what that comes down to, as opposed to actually having to manage a whole game clock, at least from the public perspective. Yeah. So he won't be faced with that level of scrutiny like Lebby is, but you have a guy who's had good defenses, but not like game-changing defenses.
I mean, they were great last year, and they were loaded with talent last year.
And he had a good run at Alabama, 18-22, and I remember
correctly, and even then, it was, compared to the Alabama defenses, it was disappointing.
Yeah, and that
was reportedly why he ended up leaving the staff, was because Saban kind of fired him but didn't fire him, kind of thing.
Fired him like he fired Kiffin, kind of thing.
Yeah, basically. And so, and there's a lot of people that will say the reason why Saban didn't win another national title there towards the very end was because he chose bad coordinators. Tommy Rees on offense, and then obviously Pete Golding. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see other coaching moves, that impact Mississippi State. We already saw Bralan Womack commits or flips from Auburn to Mississippi State. Now, something came up, and we'll talk about it in the signing day. Actually, we mentioned it. We can just talk about it now. DJ Durkin is going to be kept as the defense coordinator at Auburn. That was not expected from a lot of people. He is kept. So now you wonder if Womack will flip his commitment. Maybe he already has by the time this podcast comes out. Hopefully not.
Listening to it.
Yeah, hopefully he hasn't, and he's put in his paperwork and he signs with Mississippi State. But that's one to keep an eye on, because that looked like a massive win, and in just a day it could be taken away.
Yeah, that's huge. And I mean, Auburn also nailed the head coaching hire, getting Golish. He might be the prize of this entire coaching cycle. I mean, he's definitely.
I really like Summerall, though.
Summerall's good, and then obviously getting what Oregon's OC like Kentucky did. That's a big Stein. That's a big
and that's a totally different move from what they had. They've been a big defensive school, and then you do that. That was a really good hire for them, I think.
Yeah, I'm surprised he wasn't a little bit higher up on a lot of people's boards, honestly, for trying to go after him. Unfortunately, a lot of the SEC teams, unsurprisingly, seem, at least as of now, have nailed these hires. We'll see if, Summerall
makes you want to run through a wall.
Yeah, if those guys can keep it going. But, yeah, Golish is a program builder. I mean, you've seen what he did at USF, where they've been nothing.
I did like how Summerall said he's a defensive guy, but he wants to be a defensive guy like Bob Stoops was a defensive guy, in terms of having high-powered offenses that bury you. That's what he.
Go find Mike Leach to do that.
Yeah, right, or someone from that tree to do that. But I mean, Tulane's had some great offenses when he was there, so he's not wrong on that. The weird one, and I know we're pretty much out of time on the coaching carousel. The weird one's Penn State. I don't know what they're doing.
I don't know what they're doing.
It looked like they were clearly going to get Sataki for the longest time.
Bought it.
And then you start hearing rumors, well, BYU's trying to call donors to get more money to match what Penn State does, or at least come close to it.
Yeah.
And then there was a meeting scheduled for him to tell his team he was leaving, and then it got postponed. And the next thing you know, he's staying at BYU.
Never thought he'd leave, based off of everything I read.
I thought it was a weird fit, but
Yeah.
he's a great football coach.
Great coach. And also Penn State, what are you doing? How are you like the first team to fire your head coach pretty much? And now you're the only one left without a head coach.
The rumor that I've heard that I think is like fascinating, and I hope it's true, I just don't know if it's true, is Jimmy Sexton is the agent to almost every college football coach, but he's the agent of James Franklin. And apparently he was so mad with how they treated Franklin after leading him to the college football playoff and firing him unexpectedly that he's basically made none of his coaches available for that job.
I love a petty agent. It makes it so much fun.
Yeah, that is kind of fun. So Brian Daboll maybe back in the mix there. That's one that's mentioned. Jeff Brom from Louisville is mentioned. Brian Hartline still is mentioned from Ohio State. I don't know. What
Matt Campbell season.
Yeah, Matt Campbell was even mentioned again. So apparently they've struck on everyone. Matt Rule, Kurt Signetti. You mentioned it, they've struck out. But all right, signing day obviously is today. So we're going to talk about that coming up next. Well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day, part of Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. All right, so signing days today, and Mississippi State's had a heck of a finish to their class. Right now, if you look at it, and obviously things could change by the time this is out there, but they're ranked number 33 class according to 24/7 Sports with 26 commitments. They're just barely behind West Virginia and even Vanderbilt to be around 31. Virginia Tech's one that's come on strong late too. They're number 30. Basically every Penn State commit is flipping to Virginia Tech. We just talked about Penn State. They have like 5 commitments right now on their team. So they got a lot of work to do, and they don't have a coach. So but no, it's a good class so far for Mississippi State. I mean, it's really turned out to be a good class.
Yeah, it's a good class, and they've hit us. And when you're scrolling through, there's so many different position, like they hit every position. Sometimes you see guys, class kind of load up on one side of the ball or the other. This is really all over the place with, a bunch of, and they even got a new long snapper. It was a late commit that they flipped from, I think it was South Florida, I believe. Kyle Rushing, he's one of the top long snappers, so that's a nice pick. But yeah, a lot of receiving talent in this draft or in this class. That's the thing that kind of jumped out to me looking at the guys who they're expecting to commit.
Yeah, and Bralan Womack's one of the newer commits to the class. Cooper Crosby committed yesterday. He's a 3-star running back, Mississippi kid, chose Mississippi State over Auburn, became the 27th commitment. I think I said 26, 27th commitment in the class. But yeah, I mean, that Mississippi State at one point was in the low 50s or 60s. Actually, I think they were even down around 70 just a couple weeks ago. And to be able to kind of pull this class together, and it's built on a lot of 3-stars. Obviously, the weird thing is they have Womack listed. If you look at the deal, it says you have 1 5-star committed. And I guarantee it's Womack, but if you click it, he's not a 5-star on any site. He's a high 4-star, very high 4-star.
I think it's the averages when you put them all together. Some of them have him as a slightly higher 4-star, and somehow the maths in a way that puts him just over the.
I just know I'm looking at on 3, and he's a overall industry 4, and he's a 4 on all the sites. But he's pretty much a 5-star. He's like right on the verge. So regardless if he's a 4 or 5, he's right there. And then they have one other 4-star, which is Zion Cotton, the tight end. Outside of that, it's all 3 stars. That's the class.
Yeah, and it looks good. And there's a couple other guys that they might add that aren't on here yet. I mean, the big one is, and who knows? He may have already committed somewhere else at the point you're listening to this, but Micah Nickerson. mean,
right now he's a Missouri commit.
He's a Missouri commit, but if you go on 24/7 and you click on it, the crystal ball projection is he's coming to Mississippi State.
And he got fonged to Mississippi State.
So that would be a big one. I mean, another defensive lineman. And then a guy who you're wondering about, another guy that might commit is Tico Crittenden. There's some he's a 3-star defensive lineman. He might commit to Mississippi State. I mean, right now he's projected to go Florida State, but Mississippi State's still in the running for him as of the time of recording this. So there's a few more guys that could add too, which you take Mike Nickerson away from Missouri, that might bump you above them.
Yeah, and you could be around the top 25, which would be a really good class. So we'll see what happens. But all right, well, thanks for being Locked On Mississippi State. Your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On SEC. Chris Gordy breaks down the best conference of college sports, from the rivalries to the championship and every game in between. Find Locked On SEC on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. I'm Jaron. Check out my work over at Athlon Sports. That's Landon. Follow us, Locked On Mississippi State. We're on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. We post daily videos Monday through Friday. So check that out. Signing day is here. We'll break down that much more on for Thursday's episode. But yeah, until next time, Hail State.
Hail State.